Hey everybody, since it is July, I figured it's time to check in with my journal and planner lineup. I have two other videos where I talked about my lineup for 2019, and I will link both of those videos below in case you want more detail, but I'm going to briefly go through everything that was in those videos anyway. But I have a lot of books to go through and a lot of things have changed. I'm mainly going to go off of the first video that I did. So I did that one right before 2019 started. And then the second video I did was just a month later, talking about the things that had changed within that month. So I started the year off with my everyday carries. So these are the things that I brought with me in my purse every time I left the house. So I would have a wallet, and it was basically anything pocket size or smaller. I was pretty fluid in the sizes that I used, but the setups inside were pretty much the same. So I had the wallet. I had an on-the-go journal. So I had a separate journal that I just carried with me in my purse, and I would only use it when I was out of the house, which is the most extra thing ever. So this is a Nanami cafe note. It's in the A6 size. So this is what I brought with me for that. And then I would have my planner. So I started the year off in a Hobonichi Weeks, and the wallet has remained the same. I still use my wallets in this way, and these two are out. So the on-the-go journal has been absorbed by my Omni journal. So whatever notebook this is, it changes. Every time I finish a notebook, I just move into a completely different one. This one just happens to be a Moleskine expanded, and I now carry my Omni journal with me out of the house. So that has taken the place of this separate book. And then for my planner, I now use a Hobonichi A6 instead. Basically, I didn't have enough room for dailies in here, and so I decided to move into the A6. And normally I would have my planner on its own, but it's One Book July, so I have this set up with my wallet just for fun for this month, and it's in a B6 speckled fawns in the praline leather. So that has changed as well. So moving on, I went into, so in that first video, I then went into things that I was using as my daily books. So these are all things that I used every single day. So I have two Hobonichi Weeks that I use as my kids' journals. So I journal to my kids. I have one for each child, and I just write a daily love note or an observation or something like that. So I started out with those. This is an Enigma notebook. It was A5 size, and I had it cut down to standard, and I used this as my daily journal. So this was strictly writing, and I would just recount events that happened during the day. And that was the only purpose for my daily journal. And then I have this Midori MD 1 day 1 page diary, and I use this for self-care. So these two remain. I am still going strong with these, and I'm very, very happy with these. The daily journal is out. This daily journal has been absorbed into my Omni journal. So recounting the events of the day is another thing that I do in here. Next up are two setups that I called practical setups. And they were just kind of no fuss, no muss. They weren't embellished at all. They weren't pretty. They were just purely functional. So I kept a wide size traveler's notebook for finances. And then I kept another wide size traveler's notebook for medical care. I'm just responsible for the medical care of someone in my family. So I used a Jibun Techo to keep track of dosages and just stuff pertaining to this medical condition. And what I ended up doing, both of these have changed. I still have these, but they're no longer in the same setups. So what I found, these were both in Chic Sparrow wide size traveler's notebooks. And what I found is that pretty much everybody knows that Chic Sparrow cuts a really wide notebook. So it's really roomy if you really like to stuff your traveler's notebooks. For these two particular setups, I found that like half of my inserts that I had in there didn't have a purpose. I just had them in there because I wanted to fill up the notebook. And I decided I'm not going to do that. I need to just streamline a little bit more. So for finances, I only really work out of one of these Moleskine notebooks. So what I did was I have this Look How, it's a folio cover. So it doesn't have any traveler's notebook strings, but what I found is that I can stick one Moleskine Cahier notebook in there and that's it. And then I have like bills and other papers and things like that. And then just address labels and stamps for mailing off bills and stuff. For finances, I just track our monthly bills and that kind of thing. So I love this more streamlined setup that I have going on with that. I don't have anything extra in here that I don't need. And then for the medical care in this Jibun Techo, I really liked the setup of this. I love the vertical weekly in here. The problem is that it was just way too much space. I did not need all this room just to track when I was administering a dosage. And then it has all these extra sections that I just ended up not using. They just didn't turn out to be helpful for me. So what I ended up doing was I downsized into A6 size. So this is a Maker South folio that I had custom made. And what I have is a A6 weekly supplement from Hobonichi. And as you can see, it's the exact same vertical weekly layout. And this is so much better for me in a condensed form. And then in this bigger setup, I just had a Moleskine, just a plain notebook in with it. And I would write down notes from doctor's appointments and observations and just that kind of thing. So now I have this A6 Stalogy in here, and this is what I use for all of those note-taking purposes. And having a much more streamlined, smaller, more compact setup makes this easier to just carry around with me, and I'm much more apt to write the information in here that needs to be recorded. So it was just a win all around. So although both of these have changed, they do still exist in my setups. So now I have a whole bunch of really random setups. These are notebooks that I didn't work in very often. It was just kind of whenever I wanted to. So let's just move right in. So the first thing I have is this Traveler's Company Traveler's Notebook that I had set up to record, plan, and just track YouTube things. And then I had a setup with this Midori MD notebook. It was A5 and I had it cut to standard, and I used this as my commonplace book. Then I have a Stalogy. It was an A5 and cut to standard, and I used this for brainstorming. So much stuff. And then I had this. This is an A6 Stalogy, and I started using this as my media journal. And what I ended up doing is I cut all the pages out that I had written on while it was my media journal. And so now this is what is in this medical setup. So I've just repurposed this book so that I can continue to get use out of it. And what I ended up doing with the pages that I cut out here, I just bound them together really badly and I just archived them. So I had the media journal in that A6 Stalogy, And then the next thing, I had an A6 Midori MD notebook that I used as my memory keeper. And then I had this A5 Elia note, and I was using this as a thought journal, which was kind of stream of consciousness, random topics, and it would all go in here. And then another thing that I had this Archer and Olive A5 notebook, and I put a bunch of question marks here because it was kind of going to be a memory keeper, kind of bullet journal style, a little more artsy. It was just all over the place. So these were a whole bunch of books that I started out with. The YouTube setup is exactly the same. So this has been successful and no changes there. Everything else is out. So this just fell by the wayside. I don't have a replacement for this. It was just redundant, so I didn't keep up with that. All of these things, thought journal, memory keeper, media journal, brainstorming, and commonplace book, these are all absorbed by my Omni journal. So all of these things end up in there. So next up is my homeschooling setup. So I started the year off in the Hobonichi Cousin Avec. So this is the A5 size, and I finished this whole thing, but then I realized that this was a bit too much space. I really love the layout of this, and I am reserving the right to go back into this when I feel like I need more space. But I decided to size down, and I went into standard traveler's notebook size. And what I ended up using instead of the Hobonichi is the Traveler's Company weekly insert. So it just looks like this, very reminiscent of a Hobonichi Weeks. So this is what I'm using now. I'm pretty content with it. So that is my new setup. And I just have a Keely Reichman zipper pouch in here to hold my highlighters and pens and membership cards and things like that. So that has just sized down. Okay, and then in my 1 month update, I introduced a few other setups because why not? So what I showed in that video was I had this notebook that I used as my sketchbook because I wanted to try and just get better at my doodling and stuff. And I just got this off Amazon, and I was just trying to practice stuff in there. Then I had this photo album. So what ended up happening, my memory keeper was absorbed into my Omni journal, but before that happened, I changed the memory keeper into this photo album. And what it was, I just took the Sprocket photos and I would just put them on here with a little bit of a label, and that was that. So it was basically just a photo album. And I tried that because the memory keeper wasn't really working out. It wasn't jiving all the way. Then I had this 5-year Hobonichi that I use for gratitude. And then I had this extra A6 pocket Leuchtturm notebook that I threw in, and it served as a catch-all journal or a sidekick journal. It ended up being pretty redundant, but basically the gratitude stays. I'm still going strong with this and I love it. Everything else is gone. So the photo album and the catch-all journal, they got absorbed by my Omni journal. So this isn't filled out all the way. It's just being archived as is. And this catch-all journal, this is actually full because I was kind of in the middle of this when I decided to switch to an Omni journal. And since I was already in this and I was really liking the size, I just continued the rest of the book as an Omni journal. So the first part are just like the random snippets and things that I put in here when it used to be this. And then the last half is when it's an Omni journal with everything. So the sketchbook is gone. There's no replacement for this. Maybe I'll get back into it, but it's just something that has been abandoned. And to recap, These are all of the things that have been either completely abandoned or have changed form. So none of these are being used as they are right now. This stack is everything that has been absorbed into my Omni journal. So the reason I had set up so many of these books is because I was trying to alleviate boredom. I thought that if I had a bunch of different books that I could hop into for each different purpose, that it would keep me invested and keep me interested. And that just didn't turn out to be the case. I'm much more happy when I'm in a journal, one journal that encompasses all of these, and then I get to change that journal whenever it's full. And I can pick whatever size, whatever brand, whatever kind of paper I want. For some reason, that just jives much better with me. So all of this stuff is now in an Omni journal. And this has been one of the best changes that I've made this year. I'm so happy with this. I'm almost done with this Moleskine Expanded, and I'm really excited and also like really nervous about choosing the next one that I'm going to work in. And then the last thing is all of the stuff that is still the same. So these are all the things that are still going strong, that I'm still thoroughly enjoying. So the wallet, the gratitude, the self-care, my kids' journals, and then my YouTube planner setup. So not too shabby. I'm glad to have things condensed down, and I'm already thinking about a little changes, little tweaks here and there for 2020. But anyway, let me know how your setups have changed this year. Obviously, I have really streamlined things a lot. Let me know if you guys have done the same. You know, I started out with really big expectations, and then reality hit. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.